getting all my logistics in the row before, it was too late. So now I just have to figure out the next opportunity where he can help me, which might be around Christmas of this year.
Oh, wow, that is a wait.
Yeah.
Oh,
could be a while. That would be the longest that he told me that it would be. So
I think you just wanted to stay in North Carolina so you can watch Duke win. So you can watch Duke win last night.
That's exactly what it is.
I just hit record because sometimes the pre-conversation is almost as important as the conversation once everybody shows up.
Sure.
So just wanted to let you know that I started recording. So you're moving though. You're definitely doing it. You're waiting for your brother.
Yeah, in the sense that I've looked at every option that's available to me, and I really feel like my best move is to go out there. So yeah, I'm moving steadily in that direction. I just got to get, that's the topic of tonight's discussion, is basically, that it's not exactly easy to pull all the logistics together to do this.
It's
so.
I had an amazing, I really feel fortunate about the execution that when I moved out here, I got very, very lucky. I'm really shocked that it wasn't, I thought it'd be a lot. I don't know. I'm surprised I didn't run into more bumps, but I didn't. I just got super lucky.
Yeah.
But, so.
Hey, I'm sorry I'm late.
Hey, Jeff.
It's Greg.
Oh, Greg. Sorry. I know it's Greg. I'm sorry. I was a little out of it.
He looks just like Greg.
Yeah, he looks totally like, I was looking up and I saw.
I get them mixed up all the time.
I got a white beard, but I didn't know all of me was white.
No, yeah, I totally know who you are, Greg Smith.
I've just been tanning so much lately that,
I had one of those days today. Just bear with me. Hey,
I've been trying to get on my computer. It works. I'm on my phone. But my battery's low, so I don't know what I'm going to do. It should last for a while, but I'm at 70%.
Oh, well, you got battery. We're good.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Hey, Emily, before I just want to say, the hangouts, like the other ones, what are they? The ones where you have like, what do you call them? The happy hour or something? What did you call them?
Yeah, virtual happy hour.
I've been dying to make those, but because that's exactly where I'm at. And but being at my parents' back and forth to New York, it's been a lot. So.
No, I totally understand. They're not going anywhere. I'm going to try to keep them up every Thursday. So.
Please, I want to come.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Hey, are you down in New York now?
No, I'm going. We were there last week. We're going back. I can't even think. When are we going? Next Tuesday through Sunday, but we're all the way in Mauritius, way out east. But if I could figure something out to get to see you, Vinny and I would love.
No, I'd be happy to drive out there.
Okay, my brother is coming from Florida. The most hectic days will be Wednesday and Thursday, because that's when we're actually loading the moving truck. We have to do the closing. We have power of attorney, my brother and I. That's a crazy, going to the banks, and we're doing it. We have to take over everything, so. As an attorney, you must know it's like, wow.
Yeah. Well, we should take we can talk about it later on. So.
Yes, we will, and I'd love to see you too.
I would love it. I think you're right on about getting a meetup together up north. I think that would be really cool if you guys could maybe arrange some kind of like East Coast meetup or something along those lines. So anyway, here we all are. So Greg and Jeff, I think that probably you guys are the ones that probably have the most questions, or at least want to get some advice about, about moving out of the house, getting out. And I mean, I think, well, Greg, you've already been out, right? You've been out at times and you went back in.
Yeah, I moved out after high school to go to college and stayed out until I was about 30 and then moved back. So
Okay.
now it's time to move back out again. And I just, I don't know whether to just make it a leap of faith and just go and figure it out, as I'm doing it, or how much to have planned out in advance. Like right now I have so many questions, so I don't know if you want me to get into all those.
Well, I think that's why we're here. As far as like we can offer some advice, I mean, I think a lot of we could go through and talk about our stories, our move out process. That was one way we could approach it. And then, things that we learned along the way, or, we could just take question by question. What do you guys feel as far as like, Patty, TK, Alana, how would you like to do it?
Well, I don't really feel like telling our stories is necessarily helpful, because when some of us did it, it was a long time ago and things are very different now. I think there are some general strategies that still apply, and I've given a lot of people advice more recently and have some steps I would recommend.
All right. Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we just maybe go around and give some advice and then fill in pieces where we see, areas or that are not there, and then we'll take some questions.
Can I ask a question before?
Sure.
You got Greg, where are you from? What state?
I live in Mississippi, but I'm moving to Arizona.
Okay.
I think that, okay, well, that's good. So, Alana, do you want to start out with basically maybe some advice that you've given?
Sure. I'd say the most important thing is to figure out who your support people, who your support people are going to be, especially if you are moving to a different state away from your family or things. One of the things that you have to count on is it's really hard to get services established until you're already a resident. They don't even talk to you until you have an address in the state and or county where you're going to be living.
Okay.
In some situations, if you can secure an address, a friend, etc., you can probably even establish that residency before you're even there. But you have to be prepared for a social worker coming out, and you got to be there when they do. So it depends on where you're going. If they say, "All right, we'd like to meet you next Wednesday," can you get your butt there by next Wednesday? But in most situations, this stuff does not happen fast. The most difficult thing that people have is a lot of people are not allowed to have more than $2,000 in resources. So it's almost impossible to save for a move unless you have a special needs trust or you have someone who's willing to hold the money for you and help you pay for expenses. I would say count on it taking at least 3 months for services to be put in place. So have someone travel with you if you need an attendant. Have an arrangement that will work for them in a way where they're not going to feel like they're going to kill you after 2 weeks. I mean, it's really intense to help someone move and help them with their regular care. I was very fortunate in that I had a friend who was willing to stay for 2 weeks with me, and I was already established with the county pretty quickly. But that was a long time ago, and things don't happen that fast anymore. So thinking about someone who can move with you temporarily, and if you have other people around, Greg, you have family in Arizona. I don't know how much they'd be willing to help you out, and then later be reimbursed if they're able to be paid for the work that they do for you. But my
Okay.
big advice is have a person and have money, pretty much.
Okay.
I'll just piggyback on that really quick. So I moved out here 15 years ago, which is a while ago. But one thing, there's a lot of similarities in what Alana mentioned. I pulled Austin out of a cup. I was graduating from college. I had nowhere to go. I was very lost. So I got in touch with, I think it was Cure SMA or the SMA Family Foundation or something like that, because MDA wasn't helpful at all. And I got in touch with them, and they put me in contact with the Center for Independent Living, which I had never heard of before. The Center of Independent Living in the area had a relocation specialist. I got in touch with a relocation specialist, and he put me in touch with an apartment complex that was a mixed use for elderly and disabled. And I don't know how it happened, but there's usually like a 10-year waiting list, but they had an opening. And so I faxed my application and got approved for the apartment from Pennsylvania. And so I had my residence established before I moved out. So that was one thing. So I had an address. And then I had a friend at the college who was kind of a hippy dippy girl who lived in Alaska and Hawaii, and she was very low maintenance, very easy to be around, and she offered to come out with me for a month. And so I told the agency that I was going on vacation and I had her, in Pennsylvania, they allowed attendants to go on vacation with you. So she came with me to Texas for a month and got paid to help me. She took my maximum hours, which I don't remember what they were. I want to say they were, I think I had 6 hours a day. So it wasn't great, but it was better than nothing. And I moved out here the very first day. I went to the Social Security office and got my license. I got my license for the state because I knew that residency was really important. I also got my bank account. So then I went to the Social Security office, gave them my new bank account information, and then I started calling agencies to get care. And they started sending agents. So I would say by the time my friend left, which was in 1 month, I had started having shifts filled. But then I had another friend fly out and stay with me for 2 months. And so he was there to be, just in case my agency was terrible, which they were. I had a lot of hard times with agencies. I ended up having to find people and then have them get hired by the agency to cover my hours. And that's so I was doing like CDS before CDS. And so my friends were shifting. Basically, I'd have a friend come and stay for 2 months, would live with me for free and get to hang out in Austin. And then they would leave, and then another friend would come and crash and hang out for a couple months. And so I had that happening for a while until I got to a point where I was safe. And it took a while, but it worked. And so it was very important to have it. And I got, at the time there wasn't even a cell phones. People weren't even using cell phones. So I got like a $20 a month plan, and I just had my cell phone on me, and I knew no one in Texas. So I just figured I'd call 911 if something happened, but at least I had 911. and I mean, I just, that was it for that. So that's but a lot of that piggybacked what Alana was saying, establishing residency, getting an address, finding someone that can go with you that's willing to, deal with all the stuff you have to deal with. As far as assets go, SSI had an accidental overpayment, so they paid me $2,500 accidentally. It's kind of crazy. So I had $2,500 to move here with, and I had a credit card. And so I used my credit card and I used my overpayment money to get here.
Mm. See, what's making this doubly difficult for me is that I've never really used the system for personal assistant services before in my life. You know, when I was in college, I could take care of myself, get a shower, get dressed, all that myself. Then when I graduated and found my wife, she did whatever I couldn't do. And then when I got with my family, you know, my parents, they helped me as needed. And as I've gotten weaker, now I'm finally to the point where, you know, I definitely have to have, you know, at least 3 or 4 hours a day personal assistance. But I've been paying out of pocket, you know, and I've never really tapped into any government assistance for that. So I've got to learn that whole thing as well as the relocation.
But you were asking me about that the other day, Greg, and you said contact me when you're ready, because I can help you find all those resources, and I can do an analysis of what your benefits eligibility is.
Okay.
And that's no problem. I mean, I don't know Arizona programs, but I know how to look them up, and so I can tap you into all those things.
All right.
So yeah, the first step is figuring out what you're eligible for, and simultaneously looking for the people who are gonna help you make the move and be your backup and support people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Have a
And
good
I
night.
mean, you know, at the time when I graduated from college, it was an adventure for everybody. So I was around a lot of adventurous people that were willing to give up their time for a month to go do something crazy. And I have to say, college students are a prime audience for this kind of a thing, this kind of an adventure. Another thing I've thought of is if you're trying to get into a state system and you're trying to get into it, you know, and you're trying to get into learning the community, understanding what's out there, is possibly thinking about going to school, applying to a school there and coming in as a non-traditional student and doing student housing and stuff and go in that route, because don't you want to be Dr. Greg Smith?
You know, that's a great idea. I never thought about that.
And I mean, and there you got, you know, you can apply for student loans. You can get it, you know, you'll have the housing available. You'll have a plethora of college students that would be willing to pick up hours. And, you know, so I mean, that could be a way in. And then once you're there for a while and you know, and co-eds, Jeff said, yes, you have your co-eds.
Yeah.
So, but you know, I mean, but I mean, honestly, for your speaking situation, for your particular career, a doctor, you know, a doctorate would look really awesome. It gives you a lot of credibility.
I have to get the master's first.
But yeah,
there's actually some programs you can jump the masters altogether.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that would be awesome. That's a great idea, Emily.
I moved out. I became like, when I was 19, it was 1979. That was in New York. That was within my state. And then in 1995, I moved from New York to Massachusetts. But I did have an older sister who had SMA as well. And she did the same thing as like Alana and Emily are saying, like, lay your foundation as much as you can. I did establish residency. I sort of kind of pretended I rented from her before cell phones to establish residency and prove it. I had a phone installed in the house, my own phone. I also used it to hire PCAs. Like I put ads in the Phoenix up in Boston. That's like a kind of a cool alternative paper, rock stars and alternative life people. It's very artsy. I got really good people. And I also got a doctor. That's another thing. Because if you need hours, you're going to have a doctor say, this person needs assistance with this and that. So, I mean, I did have, you know, having my sister, she's like, oh, I have Dr. Silva. He's great. I don't know how many people you know in Arizona. I also know a woman with a disability who is in her 60s. She's beautiful. She knew my sister when I was a little kid. She knew me. And she has PCA services there. I believe it's Tucson. Where are you moving to?
Phoenix area.
Maybe it is. Let me ask my husband. Let me read this out. It is Tucson, but she'd be a good resource. I could hook you guys up together. You know, if I can. I don't know. I think we have friends online. Yeah, I think we are. I don't know, but somehow we'll get you guys to meet each other. So
I know Phoenix has a really good sill. I've heard about it.
good.
I used to work there.
Oh shoot! Sorry, I can't. My boyfriend keeps calling me. I keep hanging up on him, but he's not getting the message here.
Go ahead.
I think he thinks something happened to me because my chair is all messed up. Anyway, yeah, Phoenix I've heard is good. And you said so you know people there a little bit.
Well, yeah, and I just called the director yesterday, and I haven't heard back from him, but I'm gonna stay on top of him and let him know, what I'm gonna do.
That's a really good resource, Greg, and I think it wouldn't be a bad idea also. I don't know what the housing costs are in Phoenix, but it's also not a bad idea to think about rooming with another person with a disability. Because sometimes you can tap into the people they know and find out how they're hiring people, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's how I did it. I moved in with another disabled person. They didn't use attendance, but they knew a lot of people here already. And I almost never had to hire from the newspaper. I was almost always able to hire people word of mouth. So if you can tap into Patty's contact as well as any of the other people you know.
Right.
I don't know if you want to deal with a roommate or not.
Well, the thing I'm considering is, just because I've got to pay rent for my son anyway, because he's in school and on scholarship, and he can't work and go to school and play football. So I've got to take care of him. So I thought maybe I would just split a place with him.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, and also, I've been talking a lot about this. I haven't done this. I haven't had to do this yet. But a lot of community colleges have CNA programs, where people are getting their CNA license. And you have such a dynamic personality and speaking ability that you could go in there and give a presentation about home health care to a department CNA program. And, and then hand out your card and be like, if any of you guys are looking for, some hours, you could go in under the pretense of, let me tell you about working in, with a person with a disability and, and then kind of make some contacts that way as well. Right. So, I have a lot of,
you're right. I have a lot of power I could use. I just need to figure out, how to best harness it,
Right. And I totally, Patty, you bringing up the doctor was, that was one thing I did do. I called and I got all my files. I said, use that HIPAA, get your medical records together and have the neurologist or whoever you're dealing with in the state that you're in give you a referral for a state that you're going to. Mm-hmm. And then have them send that file to the state that you're going to. So, and then.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one other thing I want to let you guys know that's kind of screwing up my move. And that is my arms are getting weaker, so it's getting harder for me to turn the wheel. I have a steering wheel with 0 effort steering. And I can still drive, but when I get into a parking lot, I've got to, whip the wheel around and around and around. That's just very physically draining. So I went to voc rehab here in Mississippi, and they approved me getting, the steering that you have, Emily.
Okay.
But the problem is after they approved it, and after I was evaluated, I started thinking about the fact that I couldn't turn my arms vertically to turn the wheel. I have to turn it, like that. So I made a comment, and then the voc rehab counselor slammed on the brakes and said, wait a minute, we're not spending this money unless you know for certain this is going to work for you. And so we did some research, and I talked to the guy at Shepherd Center, and he said, absolutely, it can work for you. I can mount it vertically. I can mount it on the ceiling. I can mount it on the floor, whatever you want. I can make it work. So but now I've got to go back up, get reevaluated. I was hoping to have this done by the time I move, so that, you know, I have all my new stuff. But now, you know, I don't know how long they're going to drag their feet and whether or not I can get it done. So should I just come clean and tell them, look, I'm moving to Arizona? Can book rehab out there do it and just delay that process for that?
I would not tell them at this point. I would proceed with the reevaluation as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would do is every state is required to have what's called a client assistance program.
Mm-hmm.
And you should contact them and ask them what specific things that you need to be aware of if you're going to be moving out of state. They're an outside advocate. They're an ombudsman person. And you can talk to them independent of talking to the voc rehab program.
Okay. Okay. Because, I mean, it's federal money. So, I mean, can the money fall?
It's not. It's only partially federal money. It's administered by the state.
Yeah, it stays
Okay.
the same.
All right. So, then in other words,
I mean, most likely there's. Yeah, it's weird. They don't really talk to each other that much, and they're not like. I mean, I started working with a vocational rehab counselor, and in Texas before I even got here. Like I was on the phone almost weekly with my new counselor. I was kind of. I don't know. It was kind of weird. It was just weird how well things fell together. But I don't know. I knew that I had to contact people. I knew that I had to talk to people. I wasn't making any commitments. Like I wasn't, other than to the state that I was going to. I was pretty much saying, yeah, I'm going to be a Texan. I'm working on this. But as far as like telling the state I was in, Pennsylvania at the time, or New York, or anybody, I was very quiet on that side of things. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to.
Yeah, they'll just stop the process.
Right.
And you to deal with it in Arizona. They don't want to pay for it, so.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, I mean, I might have to delay the move then, is what you're telling me?
I'm saying start the reevaluation process as if there's no move happening.
Right.
And do it as quickly as possible. And contact your client assistance program.
Right. Okay.
And make sure you know your rights so that if you are moving during the middle of the purchase, they don't terminate services.
Right. Okay.
So make sure the client assistance program can help you prevent that from happening.
Okay.
What's your timeline? Like,
Yeah,
I want to be in Arizona by the end of August for my son's football season.
well, that might work. That's, yeah.
I think that's a realistic goal.
Yeah.
And I think that you can get that steering wheel. That steering wheel isn't rocket science, Greg. You can get that steering wheel quick. It's not, I mean, it's not going to take that long.
Okay.
It really shouldn't. And if they're dragging their feet that much, there's another issue there.
I need to step on the accelerator with it. I talked to my counselor today, and I asked her to put me on the email copy between the Shepherd Center and Atlanta. They're the ones that are doing it, and her. So, and then I've got to drive all the way up to Mississippi State to get reevaluated, but whatever. But anyway,
that's another thing. Why isn't the evaluator coming to you? Our evaluators come to us.
Really? I need to find out about
how
that.
are you supposed to drive? If you're having trouble driving, it's not safe for you to drive.
Exactly. Right.
So they need to come to you, and then you need to be dramatic about it. You know what I mean? Like you need to pull the drama. I veered off the side of because they don't want the client to die in the process, right?
Yeah, trust the drama queen. Emily knows.
Yeah, you should see the drama. But yeah, you don't want you to die. So,
it's a 4.5 hour drive. I mean,
What?
Yeah, it's a 4.5 hour
Oh my God.
drive. Yeah.
No. And you said, you say to them, I physically can't. The reason I'm getting this evaluation is because I'm afraid for my safety, and I'm not able to take jobs right now because I physically.
You have to turn down income producing opportunities, which is they're vested. Voc rehab is by definition supposed to keep you employable.
Right.
Right. So you need to pull the drama. You need to the whole Scarlett O'Hara.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, to be a productive member of society and pay taxes and, make it all like that too. Like, hey, I don't want to sit home. I want to work. I want to, and I can be a productive tax-paying member, and I can't because you're making me drive 4.5 hours, putting everybody in danger, myself and people on the road.
Right.
well, then,
I can't stand the fact that I had the damn paper in my hand for them to go ahead and do it, and then I said something that just raised a red flag with her. I wish I hadn't.
Well, and then also you need to you have an abilities expo thing coming up, right?
Yeah.
In June. Tell her that I've got to get to this abilities. Like, give her a deadline. Say, look, I've got this thing coming up. This is income, and I need to be able to get there by this date, and I can't drive right now.
Okay.
And throw that at her.
All right.
I mean, really. Yeah. It's hard, but drama works really well, especially if you haven't used it a lot.
Yeah, I haven't.
I pulled the drama card very, very strategically.
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, do you have any words of wisdom? You're so quiet. And now I think he's frozen.
I'm laconic. I'm not quiet. It's a difference.
Oh.
I'm frozen?
Yeah,
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. You're
I'm not frozen.
I
I'm
thought
here.
you were because you weren't reacting.
No, I said what I was saying was I'm not quiet. I'm laconic. It's different.
He's what?
Laconic.
What? Yeah.
So anyway, I don't have a lot of great advice. I mean, when I moved out from my house, I moved a whopping 4 blocks away from my father's house. So my whole family lives in the same neighborhood, and I could just roll back and forth. And so, in some ways, it works out really well. If I have an emergency, I have drop dead backup care in the form of my family. They're only 4 or 5 blocks away. But this conversation has been really interesting because I don't really want New York City it's a great place in some ways, but it's really changed over the last few years. So I'm really kind of thinking that I don't want to stay here forever. And so as I don't have any definite plans to move anywhere right now, but I could certainly see myself moving to a different place. Where it's certainly warmer, and because I don't really need 24-hour care, but I need at least 18 to 20 hours, 18 to 19 hours per day. I do like being alone for a part of the day, and so I can see myself moving, and so I'm listening carefully.
Well, I think what's interesting is that you are so close to your family, but you're not there. Like it would seem like for most people, it would be like, well, what's the point of moving if you're only going to be 4 points? But there's a bigger philosophical thing about moving, even if it's not that far away. Like,
yeah, well, when I was in college, I was on campus up at the State University of Albany, and I moved off campus with some friends into an apartment, and we all lived together. And it was the worst disabled experience on the planet. Two of my workers that were helping me, one guy broke his leg, and the other guy turned into the biggest asshole douche in the whole world. And then my disabled friend Wally, who was also living with us, he took the side of the guy that turned into a jerk. So it was just an awful experience. My grades were dropping precipitously. My health wasn't doing well. And I just had to say, I had to just get out of Dodge. And I withdrew from the university and moved back to Brooklyn. And I had to I really didn't know what it was going to be like with my father. He had just stopped drinking. And the house was a shithole. It was a real mess. So I went from a crappy situation to a less crappy situation, but it still wasn't really a good spot. And I got lucky; it all worked. So when I moved here, even though it was only within the same neighborhood, I still had to get over being gun shy of doing such a crappy job the first time I tried to move out on my own. So
And I think that's important also to talk about is it may not work out the first time around. It's not worth, but you do it again. You know what I mean? Like you learn from the situation and hopefully you grow and you don't give up, and it may not go perfectly. For me, it almost went perfectly. But I mean, I had also lived in an apartment with my girlfriends the summer before. I kind of did a lot of baby stepping. And I used the college experience to kind of learn how to manage and do all these things. And so I think that I was, it's not like it's hard to take the jump, but I think it's worth it. And even though you're living in the same area, what do you feel is different about being in your own place, TK? Like what would you say is the reason, like what is the benefit to that?
I was working initially at my first job was at the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, and I was there on the first day of the job, and I was with a medical model agency at that point, and the PA was giving me a little bit of grief, like, I don't know, can I do this? Can I go to work with you? And I said, of course you can. And so I really take the philosophy of being independent seriously. I just felt like if I'm going to talk the talk, I have to walk the walk. And I can't, if I want people to treat me like a first class citizen, I have to start with myself, expecting more of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I could have stayed at my father's house. Basically, we had a big apartment, and I had one whole end of the apartment. I paid my share of the bills. I paid half of the bills of everything, and it wasn't ideal, but it was sort of manageable. But it was inconsistent with my sort of worldview of what I should be doing, and I just happened to be living near this building, which is a building for seniors and disabled, and I kept getting told that I wasn't eligible. And then I went to a housing conference, and I heard somebody from HUD say, "Oh, depends on when the regulations were put in. What year was the building converted from what it was to what it is now?" And I gave them the year approximately, and they told me that there was a loophole that I was eligible to live here, and so I just kept pushing the envelope, and the building kept saying no, and I went all the way to the top of the program in HUD down in Washington, and I got the interpretation in my favor, and that's how I got expedited to get in. So from when I got my name on the list to when I got the apartment, it was less than 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
There were two things. I don't want to. Am I on here?
Yeah.
Because I'm not lighting up. Okay. I don't want to interrupt TK. Tell me when you're ready, because there were two things in my mind I wanted to share.
Okay.
I didn't want to.
Well, I don't really have anything in particular to talk about. In terms of the care, I was receiving 12 hours a day when I was living with my father, and then he had a stroke, and they had offered me sleep-in care, which basically the worker gets paid for 13 hours a day, but they're supposed to be available and like on deck for all 24. And given the nature of my needs, I just said no. 13, sleep in. It's not going to work. I need what they call split shift.
I tried that. It sucked.
It can't work for people. If you have needs, you have needs. It's not fair to the worker,
Mm-hmm.
and it's exploitative of the worker. And I just said no. That's not going to work. And my father was in the hospital, and they gave it to me right away. So I'm done.
No, there were just two things I was thinking of. One is about your driving, Greg. So first of all, having a progressive disability, I'm sure that isn't that new way of driving adaptable? Like as you go through changes, maybe you have to move in a certain way, or like what Emily has. Isn't that set up for that? I don't know if you hear me. Do you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm sorry. I was just my phone.
Yeah,
I was able to
yeah,
get on.
you have a clone on here.
How do I get rid of this thing?
I was
Okay.
like, wow, that was okay. So I was wondering, because like my wheelchair, you know, I have like a what do you call it, the stealth joystick I drive by my lap, and it's tiny. There's all these things that can be added. So I would imagine that driving controls should have some kind of adaptation. So if you do get a little weaker, we should be able to move it certain ways. So mass rehab should not, it shouldn't be like a big worry, because I mean, you know, we all have progressive, at least I
Yeah,
do,
the guy
disability.
at Shepherd Center told me that he wants his goal is to make it so that anybody driving only requires about 6 to 10% of their energy to drive the vehicle.
That makes sense.
So there should be a way to change it, like as you need it.
He can do it. He assured me there's no doubt he can do it.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm just.
No, it's not hard. I know the steering wheel, and believe me, it's not that complicated. It's really not. Alana, I have a question regarding housing. Are there some resources that, or legal, and TK too, you talked a little bit about it. Is there a legal mumbo jumbo, anything to push the Section 8 housing or getting qualified for housing? Is there stuff out there that you can?
There are some state programs that will expedite people on housing and or home care lists, but those are usually only activated if you're institutionalized.
And then nursing home. Yeah, that is a very it's an action of least I mean it's an action of like last resort, but I have heard that people can get themselves institutionalized and then say, hey, I want to get out, and that's the best way to get into a Section 8.
Right. The other approach is to be really persistent. There of course are the federally listed Section 8 listings that are somewhat up to date, but that means everybody in the country is looking at them. So you're competing against a lot of people. Then each community has a housing authority. Some are county, some are city. Where I live, we have a county-wide housing authority, and most of the cities within our county also have their own housing authorities. So finding out all the housing authorities and finding out when their waiting lists open and getting on their waiting list is one thing you can do. But there's another thing you can do, which is there are what's called 202 and 811 housing. 202 is senior and usually senior disabled housing.
That was mine.
Yeah.
That was mine.
And those are housing complexes that are funded by HUD, and they have an internal subsidy, and they're not listed in the housing authority listings. So you actually need to find out what are the 202 housing buildings available, and also lesser known is 811 housing complexes, which are not for seniors, they are for people with disabilities.
I live in a 202 building, and that's exactly the distinction that they were thinking that 202 is only for seniors, but because this building was converted from being a hotel to being a 202 building in the early 80s, before there was even an 811, it was the original regulations that this building was funded with said that it was for seniors and disabled. So even if it's a 202 building, you still might be eligible because you can argue that the building was constructed or renovated or built with the original regulations. And that's exactly the loophole that got me into this building.
Well, and mine must have been a mix, because I remember both of those numbers. Is that possible? because it was mostly elderly, but there were specific buildings that were designated for people with disabilities.
There are 202 buildings that are also for people with disabilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was definitely mixed. It was elderly and disabled, and the disabled seemed to be there were certain apartments that were specifically open to people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember those numbers. That's why that was the first time I've thought about it, because so much was just done in this kind of magical kind of way, like send your application. But I think that's why a lot of people don't know about that housing development, because it wasn't like, it was a really good little development. It was right on public transportation. And the waiting list wasn't that long, and I think it had a lot to do with that, because a lot of people just don't know about it.
I think housing is one of those issues that really depends on what's going on in the local stuff. There's such a shortage of affordable housing in New York City that it's really, really, really difficult. It's easier to get attendant services than it is to get housing in New York City.
And I would say it's probably the same for Berkeley and San Francisco. Am I right, Alana?
I'm sorry, I missed the last thing that TK said.
I was saying that housing is more difficult to get in New York City than attendant services. You can easily get coverage for 12 hours a day with not too much difficulty.
Yeah, right now housing waiting list, if you can get on the waiting list, they're 5 to 8 years here. And if you want to rent a unit in Berkeley, a 1-bedroom apartment goes for between $1,500 and $2,000.
Right.
Okay, a one bedroom in Brooklyn is going to be about that and less likely accessible.
Yeah.
So.
See, and Texas is turning into that, and that's why I don't know, Austin at least is. But I wonder if there's a way we can get a list of properties, and then maybe people that really have no idea where they want to go could base their search based on available housing. I mean, do you think that would be a strategy to go with, or?
Speaking of strategies, I just want to go off a little tangent from before. You have so much more available than I did, because you have the internet and Google, and even interviewing prospective PCAs in a different state, you can do it through Skype. That's another thing I wanted to say.
Right.
But yeah, maybe with NMD, one of the resources that the new organ that you're working on, Emily, is have a resource list. That's a great idea.
Well, we have one on the website. It's just not very, it's not as extensive and it's not as organized. I'm hoping that with the redesign, we're going to have more resources, but we do have a pretty good resource list that we put together.
I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, but yeah, I think it needs a little, obviously it needs work, but I'm just thinking that, there's a lot of benefit in having technology as far as a move goes. When I was looking up Austin, I didn't even use a mouse. Like, I wasn't even using a mouse on the computer. I had no pictures. I was looking at straight text, like old school. I was in the basement of a building on campus, and I remember it was like, I barely knew what I was doing, but I figured it out, and I just got phone numbers and just started calling random phone numbers. But it'd be a lot easier today, I just don't believe that the severity of your disability, and that's one other thing I want to talk about, is the severity of the NMD and moving, because I hear a lot about this whole thing about, well, what if the house sets on fire? And so I would love to get your feelings about the house setting on fire, that excuse about not moving out. What if
I've actually spent a lot of time and energy on this issue, because there have been times I've lived with roommates who are disabled. I've had non-disabled roommates who weren't home very much, and I've lived by myself. And no matter how hard I try, I can't even roll out of the bed. I couldn't fall if I wanted to. Never mind get myself out. I have a backup system with telephones. And I also have a relationship with neighbors, and I have often had neighbors within 2 blocks or right next door who are willing to check on me. Our big issue isn't fires here. Our big issue is earthquakes, and there's no predicting when they happen, day or night, and the damage can be very minimal or very severe. And so it's really great to have people who check on me after we have a tremor. So I've developed those relationships. I've also spent a little energy teaching people how to evacuate me. It's important to do that. But mostly I made sure I have a phone. Now, one thing that a lot of people do, particularly people with some, mobility impairments, is they have wireless headphones or handsets hooked up to a telephone. The minute the power goes out, that phone doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people depend on them because they're easy to carry around. You slip the handset beside you in your wheelchair and you can go. But if the power goes out, that phone doesn't work. So I always have at least one phone that I can get to that doesn't use AC power. It either has a battery or it's a really old school phone, like a Princess phone or whatever, that doesn't require AC power. Plus, I have my cell phone within reach. And often when I'm in bed, I've got my laptop going too. So I have redundancies. Being careful. When I've been afraid, I've unplugged my toaster oven. That's one source of fire. I have my attendants when they leave double check that everything's turned off.
Mhm.
I don't light candles unless someone is here who can deal with a fire. And I also check all my equipment for frayed wires. Double check the hospital bed every now and then, make sure there's no. I pull the washer and dryer out every 6 months, and I clean all the lint out of the back. I do that with the refrigerator and Emily, you're making horrible faces. Yes, I do it every 6 months.
No, I just don't do any of it. I'm totally hurt.
I just do it every spring and every fall because, all that stuff can cause fires.
Well, you're very good and safe. I'm gonna totally burn alive. I'm convinced now.
You're not gonna burn alive.
I've been in my house for 10 years. I don't think my dryer vents have ever been cleaned out.
But
Oh my God.
You gotta get organized, girlfriend.
I'm organized. I don't know. I guess. I don't know. Yeah, I sleep with candles. I'm totally gonna burn alive.
Oh my God.
I
That I would never do.
Huh?
You sleep with candles on?
Yeah, I've done
Oh my
it.
God.
I've done it. I've done it.
I have an Amish heater that I run during the night, and I have a remote control for it to adjust the temperature. And
What is it?
it's an Amish heater,
Oh, cool.
like one of those fireplace type things.
Yikes.
Oh my gosh.
And it gets pretty hot, but it doesn't, I know.
But what happens if the battery dies in the remote control? Do you have a backup, someone to come and turn it off?
I yell. I bang on the wall and yell. But
Yeah,
I'm not going to
I'm
be able to do.
lucky. I have a lot of people near me. I don't know my neighbors as well as I should, but I do agree that emergency management, anytime you ever read anything on emergency management, they tell you to know your neighbors. Like, it's really important you exchange phone numbers, and there's a touch point and things like that. I mean,
Well, your neighbor is trying to get to know you with her random cats that come in your house.
I know, the stray cat warfare.
And the way that, I mean, one of the problems with being the disabled neighbor is sometimes you feel like you're the burden or you're the one that everybody, I mean, I worry that people are going to expect me to take care of them. So I actually offer to feed my neighbor's cats. I watch some of the kids once in a while. I'll let the moms know, hey, last minute, if you need someone to watch your kids for a little while, you do neighborly things. And they ask, what do you need done? We borrow cups of sugar from each other and eggs and stuff. And when I harvest too much of the vegetables in my garden, I offer them to my neighbors. Because if you can build those relationships, you don't have to be best buddies. But we all pick up each other's mail when we're out on vacation. The guy next door, Ralph, he always says, hey, I'm going on vacation. Will you check my mail and make sure my newspaper's not on the front porch?
One of the things I did when I first moved to Austin is I committed to doing volunteer work. I committed to about 10 hours of volunteer work a week in my community. And I did that partially because I'm a good lady and I like to do nice things for people. But mostly, I really wanted to make connections. And not just for employment, but for, just overall, I wanted to make friends. I wanted to meet people that cared about similar things. And so I did Literacy Austin. I did the Runaway Hotline of Texas. I did a tutoring like at the library. And so I did all these things because I really wanted to know people. And I met my attendant of 15 years, Nemo, because I started teaching her English. She had come over here from Somalia, Ethiopia, and that's how I met her. And a year after tutoring her, she needed a job and I needed an attendant, and she started working with me. And ever since then, like it's been good. I found she's very, very important to help my stability here. And so I highly recommend that is like the neighbor thing, like getting to know the people around, really just getting to know your community and the people around you when you get to that community, that'll also help solidify the situation.
One thing I was going to throw in, I posted a link in the chat to a social network called nextdoor.com. And you basically put in your address and your email address and you sign up to it. And it's kind of like a Facebook type social network, but it's only for people in your neighborhood. So
I have that. I'm on that for my neighborhood.
Yeah, awesome. I was thinking about using this as a way of, if I encouraged all my neighbors to participate in this, then I could use that as a way to reach out in times of need, to my neighborhood without really being intrusive. People could volunteer really easily and I would know that they're close by. So I thought that was a really useful tool.
Smart. I never thought of it in that respect.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I hear a neighbor's been sick. And I surprise them. I say, hey, I'm going to the store. Do you need anything from the store? And they never thought of asking me because they think that I'm the one who always needs help. So it builds the community. I'm losing my voice. I've had a horrible cold, so I should probably go, guys.
Well, I'm glad you're there. I'm glad you're here. So thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Atlanta, and we'll set up a time to talk.
Absolutely, and probably starting with text at first grade would be good because I'm going to have to ask you some nuts and bolts questions.
Okay.
And so if you type that information up for me, and then we can talk in person. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right.
I'll get you address offline.
All right. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye. Bye. Hey, I gotta get going as well. I have to get going as well.
I hope that, thank you for coming, you guys. Thank you so much.
When is this going to be available for me to listen to again?
I'm recording it, so we'll have it up on the website. I hope other people will listen. I'm really surprised we're not getting attendance like we should. It's it's upsetting to me.
Don't-
Well, no, we have to just say that we developed a secret handshake, and we're like the disabled Illuminati, you know. You know.
There's gonna be T-shirts with our pictures on, guys.
They're missing out, man. I don't understand it. I don't understand how you can have people that are willing to help and give your story and not taking advantage of it. I
Yeah.
can't understand it.
Hey, we're pioneers.
Hmm.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much. Jeff, are you cool? He was.
Yeah, I'm good.
You have any questions or anything?
No, I don't think so. I pretty much know my path. I just need to get my logistics lined up and pull the trigger.
Yeah, it sounds like you do.
Yeah, me
I think you're gonna be great.
too.
All right.
I'm still here. I'm just my eyes are burning, so I'm making funny faces. But I want to say, I did put in the comments just during the meeting. I was like, "This is great, join us," or whatever I said. We do have to get more people, though. I mean, I feel bad because a lot of times I can't make them, but it is. I mean, I wish I had a group of people that tell me half the stuff that we're telling other people.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of shutting my eyes because I have allergies. I can't wipe my eyes.
All right.
All right.
I will talk to everybody later on. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
PM me, TK, about coming to Long Island.
Yeah. Okay. Great. No problem, Patty.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye,
all right.
guys.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Bye.
Bye.